VikesNow. I am Dustin Baker, the 1-0 Vikings. We had victory Monday yesterday. Vikings are atop the NFC North, at least for a little bit. The Packers are in the cellar. We will take it. We're going to jump into burning questions. I'm here with my very good friend, Janik Eckardt, who is the boss of Purple PTSD. How goes it, sir?
Oh, pretty good, especially after our first victory of the season.
Yeah, it was a really exciting game because we haven't had that much stress-free second halves in a very long time. Like the only other times I could think of is when the Vikings were getting their ass beat, like against the Cowboys in 2022, was it? So it was cool to put it on ice and for them to win. Right before we started to formulate our record time, it was announced a really rare in-season contract extension that Harrison Phillips is around for the long haul. I know you're a Harrison Phillips guy, but give me your thoughts and reactions to Harrison Phillips on this roster for at least the next 3 seasons now.
Oh, it's a really surprising deal, especially the timing of the deal, because normally they don't get this done when the season starts, and just wait for the next off season. But we'll take it. He basically is our defensive line. He has been since joining the team in 2022, signed a 3-year deal. Now, with only 1 year left, they extended for 2 years. I think 19 million, which is pretty fair.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good against the run. Teams don't really run against us, which we don't really see on when we just watch the game because we only care about the pass nowadays. But his presence helps Flores to play the pass, and help in that area. So I'm really glad they got it done.
Yeah, he is the closest thing the Vikings have to a nose tackle, unless you are a Taki Taimani truther, a guy who could eventually ascend the roster. It's also funny that Harrison Phillips' nickname is Horrible Harry, but then he's also like the most wholesome guy in the locker room for the Vikings. A Bills carryover. This was the guy, like the first keynote transaction that Kwesi Adolphus and Kevin O'Connell made when they took over the team 2.5 years ago. And they liked the guy enough that he's going to stick around. And I agree with you that if you exclude the edges, that he is the Vikings defensive line. He had a wonderful game against the Giants. He's never a pro football focus savant, but on Sunday he fired up an 80-point something in an otherwise, wonderful game for the Vikings on the whole. So all smiles from this show on Harrison Phillips staying attached to the roster through the end of 2026. You can kind of start to see, maybe this isn't even part of our topic load, but maybe it's just watching how everything clicked with the Giants against the Giants. It feels like this roster is really, really sweet this season to see what we make of it. And then when you just drop a rookie quarterback like JJ McCarthy into it, it feels really fun. Like the only thing that can really get a lot better is the spot next to Harrison Phillips and the cornerbacks. Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we weren't sure what to expect from the Vikings, but they look pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And now next off season, we have a ton of cap space. We have what we think might be a high draft pick. We'll see. It could be. So we'll get to add some talent next year. They make sure to keep the talent they have in house. So we'll see. Maybe next year's team could be pretty good.
And Phillips will turn 29 next January, I believe. So usually Adolfo Mensa is more inclined to do deals with 26-year-olds and 25-year-olds. But this one, an old warhorse, is going to stick around the Vikings now indefinitely.
Yeah,
All right.
what we
Yeah, go ahead.
didn't mention is he was last year's Walter Payton Man of the Year
Oh, yeah.
candidate for the Vikings. He's a team captain, a leader in the locker room. So that just adds to his run-stopping ability.
Yeah, 100%. All right, now these burning questions. I talked to Brevin Bain Sunday night after the Vikings won 28-6, and the reason I bring this one up is because I started thinking about it in the aftermath of beating the Giants handily. On this show, Vikings media in general, the NFL media on the whole, we looked at this schedule. We saw every game leading up to the Colts game, and it is either really tough or like, oh my God, I don't know if they're going to be able to win that one. So you're talking about the first 7 games of the season outside of this Giants one that they now have in the books. Talking about the Vikings maybe getting off to a disastrous start was one quote from some NFL media outlet. It was like 0-8 or something crazy like that. Did we speak too soon about the Vikings having a shitty record to start the season? I think Score North, not usually merchants of positivity, they were saying like, hey, this team could be 4-3, 5-2 by the time we get to the Colts game. I think that is near the start of November. Did we write all those obituaries about the early season Vikings too soon?
I mean, the thing about the NFL is every team can beat every team. So don't be surprised if the Panthers somehow come up with a victory next week and the Giants win. And that's just the NFL. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Vikings aren't a bad team. They can beat a Jets team or Texans or something. It might not be we might not be favored, but we can win one of the next, let's say, 3 games, and then we're 2-2. Go to London. We're pretty good in London in our history, so it's not like impossible to have a decent record at our bye week or at like 7 weeks.
I think one thing that happened to me, following the sport so intently for the last 8 months of the offseason is you get in your head the stigmas of like, oh, the Lions or the roster's so good. Oh, the Jets got Aaron Rodgers. Oh, Jordan Love's the richest quarterback in NFL history. And then you kind of look at that team and say, I don't know if the Vikings can beat these guys. But then outside of the 49ers last night, every single one of those teams looked beatable in week 1. The Lions, I know they're good. I know the roster is deep as hell. I'm like, we can beat these guys. Same with the Jets, who looked moronic last night. And then even the Packers now, we don't know if Jordan Love will be back or if he'll be hobbled when he comes back. It seems like the lay of the land is less deadly than we thought a week and a half ago.
And even the 49ers, we thought the same thing last year, and then we beat them. I mean, some things have to go right. That Jordan Addison touchdown where he just snatched the ball away from the defender should have been picked. Things like that change a game, and you need to have some bounces go your way, but it's not like we have no chance to beat the 49ers and following opponents.
Yeah, based on what I saw, a complete team win against the Giants, I am confident that the Vikings will split this junior homestand, this 1-1 against the Texans and 49ers. Probably end up picking the 49ers because I'm sure they have a fresh memory of getting beat last year. But I no longer look at, like, I was thinking 1-4. And they beat the Giants, but it's the way they beat the Giants. The defense looked magnificent. The pass rush got home. It so much so we didn't even really care about what the cornerbacks did. So what a difference a week can make. You talked about Addison a second ago, and we're going to be on Addison watch for the next 5 days, trying to figure out if he will play. His other ankle is dinged up. The Vikings also, of course, won't have T.J. Hawkinson. So I want to know, burning question number 2. Do you trust this Vikings offense against those 49ers without Addison, possibly, and Hawkinson for sure?
It's going to be tough, let's be honest. The 49ers defense is really good. The Jets had no chance at running the football last night, despite having Breece Hall in the backfield and what we thought a revamped offensive line. So it's going to be tough to throw the ball against them without Hawkinson and Addison. It's going to be tough to run the ball. However, as long as Kevin O'Connell is on the sidelines and there's Justin Jefferson on the field, that offense can score points. We've seen that. They scored points with Nick Mullins. They scored points with Josh Dobbs, aside from the Raiders game. So I still think they can get something going. But it's going to be tough.
One thing that I adored about the Giants game is I forgot what it felt like to have a running back who guided the ship and got 5-6 yards per carry. I've got so adapted to, you and I could see Dalvin Cook diminishing in the 2022 season. That season was propped up for him by huge touchdown runs. Then last year, until Ty Chandler got in there, it was awful. So I forgot what an offense could be like when you had a running back who was consistently carving the other team up. So a testament to Aaron Jones getting his 6-something yards per carry, whatever ended up being. if that is transferable to the 49ers game or the Texans game and Addison's hobbled, I don't know that it's a death sentence that Addison would be out if Aaron Jones is playing like Dalvin Cook in 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. You just need to move the ball. It doesn't matter how you do it. And if you have two ways of doing it, it just helps you. Last year, it was all passing and running game was awful. If you have two ways of moving it, it just makes life easier for Kevin O'Connell, for Sam Darnold. Darnold looked so comfortable in the offense. He probably will not replicate last year's Kirk game against the 49ers, but if he can look as comfortable, if he doesn't make mistakes, takes care of the football, gives his receivers chances, especially Justin Jefferson, the offense will be fine. If it's enough for 49ers, we will see, but it's not a death sentence to face a decent defense.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that Sam Darnold watched and played against this defense for one whole year last year, which is kind of convenient timing for a game against them this weekend. And then on the rushing attack, what was I going to say there? I had some point to make. Who is it escaping? I think it's escaping me at the moment. Damn it. All right, so let's go back into Vikings Giants. We had the euphoria of seeing the Vikings get a blowout win, quasi-blowout win for the first time in 5 years. Did you leave that game thinking these Vikings are really good? Is it more of a testament to their talent, their roster, or, man, the Giants are one of the NFL's worst teams?
Probably both. I mean, the Giants, I think I texted you during the game, this team should be relegated to college football. It's just awful. And not even to a Power 4 school, or like they should play Buffalo in the MAC conference. This is terrible. Daniel Jones looked like total garbage. I think since his extension, he has 2 passing touchdowns and 8 interceptions, 3 pick sixes. I mean, what is he doing? That's Brad Rippon's stat line.
Mm-hmm.
That's just terrible.
Did you feel this way about them a month ago?
I thought they would be bad, but not like this. They were totally inept on offense and defense, and we thought they would have a good defense, that front line, and Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, but that they didn't do anything. They couldn't stop the run, couldn't stop the pass, couldn't do anything on offense. But still, it's not easy to win like this in the NFL. It was a 22-point win. It was pretty convincing, never in doubt after like the first quarter. And they scored 6 points, 3 of those after Ham's fumble. So since it's not easy to win like this, I still think the Vikings should feel better about the Vikings now than we felt a week ago.
Yeah, on Sunday night, that's what Brevin said on this very show was even if they are one of the bottom bowl teams, Vikings beat them by 22. What else are you supposed to do? Like, if this would have been a customary close game that we know and love, won by a field goal, then it would be more of a talker to figure out, because we know all about those. Like, all right, do we just really have to beat that shitty team with a game-winning field goal by Will Reichard? But that didn't even apply. So I left that game, I guess I'd say, with a paranoia. The Giants are awful. But then I look at their roster. I know Dable is a good coach. Maybe he's not an elite head coach. Maybe he's just one of those guys that's better as OC. But and then watching some of the product the rest of the day, I don't know. I don't know if the Giants are that bad. I really do think the Vikings are actually quite good, and you can see it when you look at the depth chart. Like, the only reason that the world would be like, oh, that team's mid, they're gonna go 6-11, is because Sam Darnold is the quarterback. That's the only part of the roster that's completely like blah until Sunday. So that's where I'm at. I think the Vikings are actually good. I don't think they're good enough to be the 49ers, but I think they're good. My point that I forgot there with my mind fart was it was only like the 3rd game or 4th game on Kevin O'Connell's watch the Vikings ran the ball more than they passed it. So that gave me exhilaration to know at least he knows that that's a good thing that you can do once in a while, because one of the knocks on him is your offense can't get going unless you run the ball a little bit. And we actually had equity. I think they ran the ball 26 times and threw it 24. All right, I got one more question for you, Janik. Going back through all 4 quarters of the Giants game, what was there something about the Vikings, if anything, that utterly surprised you?
Oh, definitely how they ran the ball.
Mm-hmm.
We've alluded to it a bunch of times, but the Giants employ Dexter Lawrence. He is the best defensive tackle, especially nose tackle in football. You don't just run the ball against him. Our offensive line is still we still have Garrett Bradbury at center. He's not a big guy. We know that he gets pushed around. He struggled against Dexter Lawrence in the passing game, but they had him under control in the run.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Jones, I think he produced 6.7 yards per carry. That's really good. That's
Mm-hmm.
we haven't seen that in a while, and that really surprised me. I didn't expect that at all.
No, I'm right there with you. I thought if Jones is going to have a good game, it would be something where, 4.8 like yards per carry or something, because even then we would be like pounding our chests on this show about that because it was so uncommon last year. What about the, at least for one game, emergence of Blake Brandel at left guard, who had a marvelous game? PFF calls him for a week the second best offensive guard in football. Blake Brandel, do you? I mean, Wes Phillips said this all offseason that this guy's pretty good, and it wasn't even a debate when Dalton Reisner got here who was going to play left guard. Were you surprised by Brandel's standout performance?
Yeah, so all off season we just scratched our heads, and how could they just put the backup in and think that was going to work? So far, it has. I checked that PFF Dexter Lawrence primarily lined up over Bradbury or Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a minor asterisk, but he still got it done. It's not like he played against some bad players. Still a starter in the NFL. So far, nothing to complain about.
Yeah, that was one thing that I would be pissed if I was a Giants fan about many things, but the defensive line that you have, Lawrence, Thibodeau, and Brian Burns, that should never be completely stifled. I don't care how good Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill are. It's like Jefferson, going up against a good cornerback. You should still feast a little bit. And so they spent all of these assets and this money. Hard Knocks told us all about it. And then it was basically a non-factor after the first drive, after Dexter Lawrence got that out of the system. The thing I love the most about Blake Brandel being good for a game and probably for the long haul is this is how other teams do it for guards. They find a guy from the 2020 draft in round 6. He sticks around for a year or two, and then boom, you can start the guy. We always have to draft some son of a bitch really high in the draft, and then he sucks, or we're trying to figure out half-ass solutions like Dakota Dozier. It's cool to have a guy that has been groomed by your team, and then this coaching staff, this offense first coaching staff says, you know what, I think this guy can play. And they kind of did it undercover. Like you said, we were asking about WR3 all summer. Like, when did they don't know about this? And so the fact that Blake Brandel was organically grown, you didn't have to spend a first, second, third rounder on him, and he's just suddenly good. That's what you see a lot from the storied franchises, just no-name guards that you don't know their name because they're quietly good. They do their job. They're not flashy. So I'd love, at least for one game, having Blake Brandel in the house that, most people have to be like, who the hell is that?
Yeah, surely look good. He's gonna face a tough test next week or this week. 49ers defensive tackles, Malik Collins and Javon Hargrave.
Mm-hmm.
Really good duo, and the edges are obviously good. So we'll see how he fares in that game.
All right. You have anything else that we did not cover that you've been writing about, thinking about, that you're like, you know what? People need to know about this, about these Vikings.
So I think we should just talk for a minute about Sam Darnold, who we had that theory that he would be good in better circumstances, better teammates, better coaching, but he looked totally awesome. Like PFF grade is like 88. It's he looked fantastic, comfortable in the system, comfortable in the huddle. Maybe the one thing you could complain about is letting the clock tick down too far and having to take these timeouts. Now, on the other hand, I've seen Aaron Rodgers do that all his career, so maybe that's just a good sign. I don't know. But he looked comfortable, gave his guys chances, didn't make any bozo things. Now, maybe he does it on Sunday and just throws 4 picks and it's just back to square one. But for now, I'm feeling pretty good about him.
The thing I love the most about him on this team, we just came off the quarterback carousel with Josh Dobbs, Jaren Hall, and our guy Nick Mullins. And on this show, or talking amongst your pals, your coworkers, you always had to wonder, oh, can Josh Dobbs throw outside the numbers? Oh, does Jaren Hall have the NFL caliber arm? You don't have to worry about any of that shit with Sam Darnold. Like, the arm talent was never the problem. And if you have the hard part figured out, that gives me excitement to know that maybe this is sustainable. Now, that was the undoing of the quarterback carousel last year, is it wasn't sustainable. We had 2 wonderful, fun games, and then I was like, oh, God, this guy sucks now. So I think Darnold, because he has that like genetic arm talent, that it doesn't necessarily have to go to hell this week or next, because this is what he should have been doing all along. And maybe there is some big, like, proven thing where if you get drafted to a shitty team, it ain't gonna work. And certainly that's what happened to Darnold with the shitty team. Now, this still might be part of his fault, but it was refreshing to see a guy that we know can make the throw. The guy, he might even have a better arm than Kirk. Like, it's wild to think that that's just kind of a throwaway free agent signing, $10 million. We were all disappointed that McCarthy tore his meniscus, but Sam Darnold for 1 year, like, the arm talent isn't like, oh, it's mid, but we'll ride the wave. It is absolutely wonderful arm talent. That's why he was taken 3rd overall 6 years ago.
Yeah, O'Connell just needs a guy to throw the ball to the receiver he schemes open. And Darnold can do that. Mullins, he could do that, but often throws to the wrong guy, to the wrong color of jersey. Dobbs couldn't do it at all.
Yep.
So, and Darnold, he can do it. It's just a matter of, does he take care of the football? But for now, he looks like a mature Sam Darnold, and that's a pretty good quarterback.
What do you, maybe we should ask this after the 49ers game, but do you have a revised ceiling? Like, if they play as well as they did against the Giants, if we assume, probably erroneously, that the Giants are utterly garbage, and the Vikings are just good, do you think that, hey, Jordan Love's going to be hurt for a handful of games? The Bears certainly didn't look like gangbusters. Can the Vikings really nibble at the NFC North, or is that just post-week 1 vibes?
So for me, I think the Detroit Lions will run away with the division. They're just too good, too deep of a team. Now, we all know injuries can happen, but without an injury, I don't think we can top them in the standings. But if Darnold keeps playing the way he did, if the defense is holding up, this can still be a playoff team, and in the playoff, everything can happen. So I don't think there should be any ceiling talk as long as Darnold can play as well as he did.
And I think by maybe the bye week, we will have a verdict on whether or not this Darnold experiment, especially if it stays good, like we probably won't know by the end of next weekend, because some of these backups, as you know full well, like, they're great for a couple games, and it's like, oh no, this is why the guy's a backup. I don't think that necessarily applies to Darnold because of the arm talent we just mentioned, but we should know by the bye week, which is 5 weeks away or so, if it's sustainable. All right, Janik, thanks for joining. Is that everything? Did we get everything covered?
I think so.
All right, cool. All right, I'll hit your line after the 49ers game, and we can try to plan something to chat about it thereafter. Okay, sir?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, thanks, man.
Yeah.